Yahoo! Welcome, my beautiful brothers and sisters, fellow radiators of love, to Astro Fenixx, flying into the moment yet again and radiating love as always. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the full moon in Aries. I'm not even gonna lie, I didn't really feel like doing this video, but I think. I didn't feel like doing it for the simple fact that I was just feeling lazy. I was feeling not even necessarily unmotivated, but just lazy and a little bit lethargic too, which is weird because this full moon is actually hitting my fifth house of creativity and passion and sort of like that. But I don't know. For me today, it was just kind of interesting how the energy was hitting and stuff. But in any event, this is going to be talking about this full moon in Aries. I'm not going to be live for super long, but I still wanted to provide my 2 cents and just my insight on what this full moon brings. And it's kind of a simple energy, And not to call Aries energy simple, but Aries energy is very direct. It's cardinal fire, right? So it's dealing with this spark. It's dealing with this action. It's dealing with how there can be just one moment in your day that can just shift the tide. Not many ways is this sort of Aries-like energy where something that we do or something that we act on, something that we even maybe respond to can really shift our entire vibration. And, a lot of that does begin with this Aries-like energy. Bam, something changes. Bam, something moves you forward into another direction. Whether you are on the upswing, whether your vibration is lifting, or maybe something that kind of just, brings your energy down and, brings your vibration down. It can happen just like that. And how this full moon is really going to be showing us just how far we have come over the past year, because we all have come very, very far over the past year with our character development and the upgrade to our character and the upgrade to our arsenal. So Aries energy is this warrior-like energy, ruled by Mars, the god of war. And, this means that we have the sun in Libra, which the sun falls in Libra, right? Because it is exalted in Aries. So right now it's like with the full moon, it's this gigantic illumination. And in many ways, it brings out sort of this sort of, I don't want to even say over exaggerated, but it does bring out this sort of fullness of whatever sign it is in. So with the sun in Libra, obviously our spirits, our awareness is focused on creating harmony and creating more beauty in our life and creating more of this peace amongst others in our life. But then we get this full moon in Aries where it's like, peace and harmony can't really be had with other people. This beauty can't be had with other people unless we recognize the beauty within ourselves and harmony within ourselves. And what we have to look at our actions. We have to look at what we do. We have to look at, do we just do it? Do we just go for it? We have to look at ourselves and our personal journeys. And a lot of that just becomes brightly illuminated. It comes up to the surface and it's really brought out. The depth of our character really is brought out. So it's like we can't really create this harmony with other people unless we have it with ourselves. And the other cool thing about this full moon is that it begins a whole new full moon cycle. We get full moons in each sign every single year. This year, we actually had 2 full moons in Libra while the sun was in Aries. We had it at the beginning of Libra and we had it at the end of Libra. And this full moon is going to be, it's occurring at 20 degrees of Aries. Then we have to understand that, this is going to be the first full moon of a new full moon cycle, to where now, as the year continues along, you are going to start to get, we're going to get the full moon in Taurus and the full moon in Gemini. So these different areas of our consciousness, these different areas of our being are going to start to get illuminated. This is beginning that first new cycle where it's like, okay, now our character, our initiation, that cardinal fire, that spark is now being initiated. So this is going to be a very inspiring full moon. But the other thing about this is that it's going to be putting people in this position where they're kind of looking at how they developed over the past year, and they're going to be wanting to it was like, oh, I don't know how I feel necessarily about that. It's like, there can be some difficulties accepting where we are right now. But this full moon is going to be giving us the opportunity to make changes. I hate this full moon. Please tell me why I'm bored. It's in my ninth house. Dude, I've been bored today. I've been very bored today. I took a nap during the full moon. Like when the full moon came to its like apex, I was actually asleep. When I took a nap. And it's weird because this is an Aries full moon, so it's supposed to be energizing. It's also raining outside, so I'm not trying to make excuses. But what I think is happening with this full moon is that people could be bored with who they are. They could be bored with how they've been acting. So thus we get a full moon that shows us this is how you have been acting over the past year. Now there's time to make changes because, I'll show you guys in the chart in a moment, but with this full moon beginning this new cycle of full moons, the first area of our being that's being changed, that's being brought to the surface, that's being illuminated is our personality, is our actions, is our ego. And a lot of people right now are feeling like perhaps they haven't done enough over the past year, but this is all projection because the fact of the matter is that you have come so fucking far from the past year. Just look at where you were a year ago and look at all of the battles that you have won since then, be them big, small, in between, or whatever. Even if they're super important to you, it may not seem super important to other people. There are so many battles that you have been able to overcome over the past year. And now you're getting the upgrade, you're getting the experience points necessary for you to move to the next level and for you to evolve. I'm going to use several Pokemon metaphors here because I feel like it's actually applicable. And I feel like enough of you guys have at least played some version of the game, whether they are the early games or the new games. And this metaphor that I'm about to use is something that we all have experienced within those games, or even not even necessarily those games, but just any games in general where you have a character and you have to upgrade them. The thing about this full moon is that in the Pokemon games, you have a Pokemon and they have different attacks. They have 4 attack slots in the game, so they can only have a max of 4 attacks. Even in the anime, it shows this. And what happens is that as Pokemon level up, they get to learn new attacks, but they have to erase. If their slot is full, they have to go back and erase and forget one of their previous attacks in their arsenal. And what's happening with this full moon is that we do have Chiron here still. Now, the last full moon that we had in Aries, also Chiron was there, but it was at 0 degrees, so it was really just beginning. Now it's here at 2 degrees. What's happening with this full moon is that our spirits are really urging us to change and to delete one of the moves in our slots, in our move pool. But the problem is that maybe that move, maybe that action has won you a lot of battles in the past. So people are getting emotionally attached to these actions that they have taken over the past year. So say you have a Pokemon and they're getting ready to learn a new fire type move, right? Just say that they're getting ready to learn Flamethrower, right? And say they had another fire attack, like let's just say Flame Wheel, right? That Flame Wheel could have won that Pokemon so many battles in the past, and it could have gotten you out of very tight situations. But then there has to be this trust. There was like, oh, the universe is like, here, I'm going to give you a new attack. I'm going to give you a new weapon in your arsenal. And you have to have the faith that this new attack is actually going to work out for you. It's even going to work better for you. Because here's the thing, though. The only way to really grow stronger is to go up against bigger and badder and stronger opponents. Iron sharpens iron. So it's like you can't. And it's also like if you take like a level 50 Pikachu and you're battling level 5 Pidgeys, you're not going to get a lot of experience points. You got to go battle some higher level Pokemon. So same things for you. There are bigger fish to fry. There are bigger things to accomplish. And we have to remember with this Aries energy, it is exalted in Capricorn. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. But this full moon features a major T-square. We have the moon in Aries, we have the sun in Libra, but we also have Pluto over in Capricorn, and they all squared each other at 20 degrees. So we get this major T-square. The last full moon that we had in Aries also featured this T-square, albeit it was not at 20 degrees, but it was around 2 degrees that all the planets were at in the respective signs that they're in. So there is, even from that sense, because squares bring challenges, there is an upgrade to the challenge. So we have to understand that this move pool that we have been using, these attacks that we have been using, these actions that we have been taking, they're not going to work as well against these new opponents as they did before. They could have helped us in many battles. They could have gotten us out of many close calls and situations. But now we're going to start to notice that if we emotionally attach ourselves to these attacks, and if we don't like acknowledge, I'm grateful for how this has helped me, but now it's time for me to upgrade my sword. It's time for me to upgrade my weapon. And it's like we had to do that because now we're going to be, if we go into this new battle, if we go onto the battlefield and start using those moves, we're going to realize that they're not as effective anymore. They don't have the same power anymore. Why? Because you've outgrown using that ability, and now you're going to be facing opponents that they're going to kind of take the attack and be like, oh, that didn't do too much. So then that's going to actually cause you to overwork yourself, because now it's going to take more attacks, going to make more attempts to try and take down something. Whereas God as the universe source perspective is giving us a new opportunity. They're giving us a new weapon in our arsenal, so we can now take down these bigger and badder opponents, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to always be going against something. That doesn't necessarily mean that, but just challenges in general, obstacles, or maybe goals. Now we are our goals are bigger, our goals are frothier, our goals are juicier now. This T-square that we have with Pluto. Now, Pluto, like I said, Pluto's the planet of death and destruction, right? But also creation. It's in Capricorn. So it's like we're having to literally deconstruct in many ways, sort of, our foundation in a sense, or what we have built up to this point. And we have to begin to adopt a new way of being, a new way of presenting ourselves, because Libra is about presenting ourselves too. Libra cares about presentation. Libra wants to make sure that the hair is nice, wants to make sure they have on the nice perfume or cologne, want to make sure that they're wearing the nice and latest clothes and stuff like that. Aries doesn't necessarily give a shit about that, right? Aries doesn't necessarily give a shit about that, but there needs to be some sort of balance, because it's like, yes, it's like, you want to be authentic, right? Of course you want to be authentic. And it could be authentic for you to just simply wear a t-shirt and jeans all the time. But occasionally it is nice to, trim your beard up like I need to, or to trim your hair down, or buy a nice set of clothes, whatever like that. And yeah, some people may be like, oh, I'm a minimalist, I don't need all this sort of stuff, Libra can be a little materialistic sometimes. But there is a sort of confidence boost that can come from giving ourselves the gift of this newness. A lot of times people like to think that full moons are releases, and it is a release, but it's also a time for newness, especially with this Libra energy and this Aries energy, because Aries is about new things, new activations, new energy, new fire, new motivations, new inspirations, right? It's all about that sort of stuff. So this is going to be a time where there is going to be this sort of deconstructing of the way we present ourselves and the way that we act and react to our situations and to other people and these relationships. But it is meant to elevate us to this next level in a super powerful way. I do want to hop into the chart real fast just to show you the comparison of this full moon to the last full moon, because we have Mars, which is also in Libra too. We're going to see that it was in a different spot. Spellsing got no more attacks left. Spellsing, you struggle. Spellsing blacked out, and it can be like that a lot. And that's the other thing, though. Here's the other thing about that, because I'm glad that you mentioned that. We can use the same attack now But since it's going to take more of that attack to win, we may end up using up all of our usage of that attack. And then we have to go to struggle. And that's the weird thing about it. It's like we don't struggle right here is actually going to be a bit of a choice, especially if you're in the Western world or if you're watching, the struggle is a bit of a choice because there are parts of the world that truly do struggle where they don't even have a bathroom to shit in, or they don't even get clean water, or they wonder where their next meal is going to come from. But like first world problems, like we create struggle out of seemingly the most mundane shit. Like, there are moments that like I created struggles today. I was like, I was trying, we went grocery shopping and I didn't necessarily want to go grocery shopping. And I was trying to look up the football scores on my phone to try and see what was going on. And my phone wasn't really getting the greatest reception there. And I wasn't paying attention to Lauren. And she was trying to talk to me and I wasn't fully engaged with her because I was just so focused on a game that really has nothing to do with me. I'm just a fan of the team and we lost today. But it has nothing really to do with me, but here I have someone who is in my space who really cares about me and is trying to engage with me, but then I'm not really giving her that engagement, and thus it can devolve into some sort of disagreement or argument or whatever like that. Or the other day, like the same thing kind of happened again. Like I was playing video games, I was getting upset because I kept getting my ass kicked, and I lost a championship match. It wasn't the full championship, but I lost the championship match in the game to make it to the final game, and I got pissed. But it's just a freaking video game, and my partner is sitting there on the couch looking at me while I'm yelling at the TV screen. And really, it's like, which one matters more? That's the thing. We have to ask ourselves, there's a valuing system that goes into this, because Libra is about valuing. It is in many ways the scales, and we have to look at our lives. Like we have to value, like, okay, what has more value in my life right now? There are moments where I valued video games more, and then I'll see that she was like, you could see on her face that she was visibly like, I can't believe he's letting this game get to him. Or like earlier in the grocery store, I was valuing looking up scores on my phone to a game that really has nothing to do with me besides the arbitrary random chance that I just happen to be a fan of this particular team because of whatever. It's even more arbitrary because I wasn't even born in Philadelphia. I've never even been to Pennsylvania. So it's like, it's even more arbitrary, right? So it's like letting those sort of things come in and affect you. And then of course, affecting your relationships. That's a whole other thing with this energy. So sometimes we can get kind of wrapped up in, what we want, our desires and the ego and stuff like that. And we can take it to the extreme to where it starts to affect the relationships around us, because ego isn't inherently bad. And I've been preaching this for such a long time. It's not inherently bad, but there is a sort of threshold to where it's like, okay, man, you might want to dial it back a bit. So there are moments today where I just had to kind of dial it back a bit. Focused on the games, focused on fantasy football, focused on shit that really doesn't matter because it doesn't really affect the quality of my life. I guess I could get the satisfaction of winning, but how long does that satisfaction really last? It affects those football players more that are actually playing the game because that's what they're doing for a living. It actually affects them. They have to continue to perform good because they continue to perform good, then they get paid and stuff like that. They'll get sponsorships, but if they don't continue to perform good, then they'll get benched. And then, some other players will get the opportunity to rise. And then they can maybe, if they get so caught up into their old way of playing, here's another thing. I'm going to wrap this around. If these players get so caught up on the way that they've been playing, and maybe it worked in high school, maybe it worked in college ball, but when you get to the NFL, when you get to these upper level sports, because Aries does real sports, the game changes and you have to evolve at the game and you have to continue to practice. It's not just enough to get to where you want to go. Once you get there, it's like, oh, it's a whole new ball game. It's a whole new league. It's just like in Pokemon. It's like you get to the Pokemon League. It's not just like, oh, I got these 8 badges that gained me entry into here. Yeah, now you're going to be going up against the best of the best, the creme de la creme. So it's like, you have to upgrade the way that you've been playing, and you can't just get so emotionally fixated on like, something that like your ego like really desired or wants. So it's like if you're not careful, you can end up getting benched for someone who's been putting in hours and hours at the gym or putting hours and hours in on their craft, and it's like they can take your starting spot. And then you may get released from the team because you're not really giving it your all. You're not putting it in there. You're just kind of focused on the title of it. That's the other thing with Pluto. Pluto is going to be kind of destroying titles because Capricorn does kind of rule titles right now. And everyone wants a title. Everyone wants to feel special. Everyone wants to feel special. Guys, I'm sorry. We don't have any Leo energy, right? We don't have any Leo energy. Everybody wants to feel special. And this Pluto squaring these energies is like, yeah, you can be special, but act special. Don't just want to be special, but act special. Act, do something that's actually going to reflect the specialness that you feel, because we are all special. We all are unique, but we have to actually do something to actually show that specialness. What's up, Guru? Lauren, you weren't moody at all. Yeah, I was a bit moody today. It was in my 5th house, so I mean, yeah. On the Chiron and ego, emotional completion. So we have to learn new stuff. Yeah, this is going to end. This is going to be the second full moon and a string of full moons to begin in Aries while Chiron is here. So so it's like Ash starting a new region with new Pokemon. In many ways, yeah, because Ash could take his old Pokemon to the other regions, but he gives himself a challenge. That's the other thing about it. We can start over. It's like we can start over and go to a new thing, but bring our old stuff with us and seemingly sweep through the competition. But then that doesn't really promote character growth, right? Not really. So it's like we can play the whole game and then go back to the beginning and try and play with the same team and just sweep everyone. But then there's no excitement in that. There's no fun. There's no real motivation. There's no real inspiration in that. So you have to progress to the next level. You have to. It would almost be similar to like Ash starting a new journey, Ash starting over in every region with a new Pokemon besides Pikachu. And of course, Pikachu gets level resets. But that would be, if he were to bring his old Pokemon with them every single time, that would be the equivalent of a pro sports player going back and playing in high school. That would be the equivalent. It's just simply not fair. I have another one that's simply not fair, but I don't know if I really want to mention it because it's going to be very much so politically incorrect and people are going to get upset about it. But I'm going to mention it because it's Aries energy, it's in your face, and honestly, it doesn't fucking care. There's also this sort of unfair quality that can happen when it comes to competition, because Aries does rule competition. There can be this sort of unfairness to where there is obvious advantage for certain peoples, whatever like that, and it doesn't really seem fair. But because of our political correctness with Libra, it's like we allow it to pass. But then it's like, is it actually right though? That's the other thing. And what I'm specifically talking about is transgender athletes when it comes to male to female transition. If a male transitions into a female and then they go into athletics, they tend to just destroy the competition. They really do. And it's not to say that there have been incredible women athletes out there that would kick my ass in whatever sport that they're doing, because I haven't practiced it, right? But there's an overwhelmingly majority, and I may piss some of you guys off with this, but it's just a fact. There's an overwhelmingly majority of transgender male to female athletes that dominate the competition because they biologically have more muscle mass. They biologically have more of that brutish strength. They biologically have more of that stuff. That's going to piss some people off, but it's true. So there are even unfair advantages when it comes to that sort of stuff. And we have to, which is why I feel like, males should compete against males, females should compete against females, and transgenders should compete against transgender. Like, I think that's fair, And that's not with all sports that's the case. A lot of it's like weightlifting and anything that has to do with that sort of stuff. Or even I think even in track, there's been issues with that where you'll have transgender, male to female, where they just dominate, and it's just not fair. It's not fair to the biological women. And then of course you have the female to male athletes that don't on average don't do that well. It's not fair. So it's like, and it's even not fair against the males because then it's like it's unfair because then they can't really test how strong they really are. And I know that this may seem like a very polarizing topic right now, but I do feel the need to bring it up because Chiron is in Aries right now, and being the wounded healer and being Aries is the sign of personality, and in many ways the way that we identify ourselves. There is a lot of hurt and trying to figure out ways of how the fuck do we identify with ourselves in these titles and all these different things. And this is Pluto is in many ways kind of destroying the notions of these. Now it doesn't seem like it because it seems like we're like in like the heap and the depth in the middle of people trying to figure out what their fucking title is, right? Pluto doesn't give a fuck about your titles. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. Pluto doesn't give a fuck about your titles. And Neptune's going to be coming into Aries like in the next decade. So we're even going to start to be revealed to the illusions of all this shit, right? I learned yesterday that sex is biological and gender is mental. I don't even know anymore, dude. I don't even know anymore. Like, I really don't, because there's so many different genders now. There's so many different things. Like, one of the ones I saw was, I always trip about this. I think it's demisexual, biromantic, or something like that. They have their own flag, this particular, I guess, gender. And what was weird about it is that apparently, I think it was, like I said, I think it was demisexual, biromantic. I think what it means is that you are attracted to both sexes, or you're attracted to both males and females, but you won't sleep with them unless you have a deep emotional connection with them. Which essentially sounds like you're bi, but if you don't really like someone, you won't sleep with them. Or you won't just sleep on the first date. That's what it sounds like to me. But for some reason, people feel like they need to have a title and a label for that bullshit. It's not bullshit, but they feel like they need to have a title and a label for it. The title and the label is bullshit. The fact that they need to have their own flag is a bullshit. Everyone needs to stop trying to put labels on things. Yes, we need to stop trying to put fucking labels on things. So a lot of labels are getting kind of torn apart. But here's the other thing, though. This full moon in Aries is going to reveal what labels have you been putting on yourself? What titles have you been putting on yourself? And maybe it's time to adopt some new titles and some new labels that are actually going to be more reflective of your evolving character and where you are right now, and reflecting where you want to go. Because that's the thing about it. Mars is a very forward-moving energy. So it's not necessarily just about this moment, but it's about where you want to go. So it's like, it is sort of like it can be a sort of like fake it till you make it energy, where it's like you want to, because Libra is charisma. So it's like, if you really want that new position, it's like you have to play the game. You have to develop that charisma to move on to that next spot, and, yes, so I feel like so long as we're not just flinging our titles in people's face. There's nothing necessarily wrong per se with labels and titles. I think what's wrong is the fact that we just like to flash them in people's face. It's like, this is what I am. 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 And this is what people are doing. Instead of just being like, if it comes up casually in conversation, you can mention it. But not to just go out and just flash, this is what I am, guys. This is what I am. And you have to acknowledge me by this, because if you don't, I'm going to react in a certain way, because you won't acknowledge me as this. I swear, these individuals that get really hyped up over this stuff, if they really love, I'm not saying that they don't love themselves. I'm just saying, like, if they really were like if they were more spiritually inclined, the way that they address themselves versus the way that they address the way that other people address them, there wouldn't be such a fucking discrepancy, and they wouldn't care as much, because maybe they know the truth, they know their truth. But if someone else doesn't necessarily acknowledge it, and we all need to find our tribe, we all want acceptance. But if we try and force, you know, what we see in ourselves onto other people and want them to acknowledge that as well, and they don't take it, but then we build up the resentment because they won't call us what we want them to call us, then there's an issue. That's more of a personal issue. Yes, they can be the most racist, bigot, sexist, misogynistic, narcissistic, throw all those words out there that people love to fling around these days. They can be all of that stuff. But if these individuals, or if you get to the point where you are so reactive to what they're saying, then you are really falling for that energetic trap and that energetic vampirism. And you are not being like, you know what? I don't care what they fucking say about me. I know who I am, and I'm going to continue to act accordingly. That is what's most important. Not being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they won't acknowledge me as this. Then why can't you acknowledge it? Why can't you change? Why can't you change? Some people aren't ready to change, guys. That's the big fact about it. And the world is changing. The world changes everything every day, but some people aren't ready to change. So we can't force the ideal that we have on ourselves and project that on other people. As far as like, we can't have like the ideal that we have for ourselves and project the expectation onto other people that they're going to see us as that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I was trying to word it right. Tiny doesn't recognize Pluto as a planet. How come he lost his label? Because they're trying to kill Scorpio. That's why they tried to demote Pluto. And Pluto, I think Pluto cares a little bit more than he wants to let on, but ultimately Pluto doesn't give a fuck because Pluto's still going to do what Pluto does. So it's sort of like oh well, I guess I lost the title of planet, but I'm still going to do what I'm doing. Like, it's just like, you can, like, say like, you know, you have musical instruments, right? And suddenly it's like, oh, the piano is not an instrument anymore. Say it's just, it loses the label of being an instrument. The piano is still going to do what the piano does. Just because it loses the title of being an instrument doesn't make the piano any less of a piano, or any less of having the ability to be this conduit of making music and creating music. That's sort of the thing. So just because someone may try and delabel you or decharacterize you or try and take away something from you, a lot of times ultimately it can seem arbitrary. Unless they're really trying to take from like your spirit and your essence, then that's obviously an issue. But if it's just like a simple, like, you know, oh, I'm gonna just take away this title, or I'm gonna take away this whatever like that, and then you get all super riled up about it, and yeah, you're gonna fall for that energetic vampirism. And Libra, they are the vampires of the zodiac. I mentioned this before, and vampires isn't necessarily a bad thing, actually, because vampires actually do have a bit of this sort of royal like energy that's very like, you know, doing things kind of like a particular way, and there is a sort of even beauty to vampires in many ways. So, but the issue is that sometimes we can have this sort of energetic vampirism where we are trying to do so much for other people, but then we take from ourselves, so we suck our own blood, right? And then since we're not giving all of ourselves to other people because we care about what other people want, and we're not caring about what we want truly, and we're not giving to ourselves, and we're just trying to fill up everyone's cup but our own, whatever like that, and we're trying to just make everyone happy and just trying to make peace with everyone and just trying to have everything like la la la, oh, everything's great and dandy and rainbows and unicorns. Sorry to say, guys, it's not always going to be like that. Not that we can't have that beautiful world, and not that we haven't had that beautiful world since humans have been on this planet, because we have. But it doesn't mean that it all has to be rainbows and sunshine, right? It's not always like that. We do have Pisces energy, but it's Neptune retrograde, and Lilith is here. So That even adds a whole nother element to this energy. So, like, from now on, I identify as overlord. It's a new gender and it's superior to all genders in the past, present, and future. What if a piano with AI chose to not identify as a piano because it got artificial consciousnesses? That's a whole other thing. What's going to happen when we get AI and we start having robots around? And what's going to happen when aliens finally come out and that they can actually just literally fluctuate between the two genders at will, and they don't have to actually go under a scalpel to change their gender? What's going to happen then? What's going to happen then? It's like, or imagine how, like, starfish, they can change their gender. Clownfish can change their gender. There's a certain species of lizards that are all female, but they can still procreate because one simulates the male. It's called parthenogenesis. Look it up. But it's like, at what point do we get over ourselves with all of these fucking labels? At what point do we realize that it's time to upgrade it? It's time to, especially, honestly, I consider it a luxury that we even have this conversation in this country and in other countries, but especially here in the USA. It's a luxury that we have even had this conversation of transgender and gender fluidness and gender politics and sexual preferences and all this sort of stuff and labels and what kind of politics are we into, and how it's like, yeah, there are two main political parties, but there's probably 1,000 of them and whatever. People are always going to disagree with each other and try and separate and create themselves a new thing. That's always going to happen. It happens all the time. It happens on big scales and it happens on small scales. Small scale, perfect example. You grow up in your family. You hit 18, you hit your 20s, stuff like that. Some people still live at home, but then there is a disagreement within the family. You're not really seeing eye to eye with your family, your dad, your mom, whatever like that, and you move out. You separate, but you go off. You have your own experiences. Then you build your own family. Then you bring them around for the holidays or for the children's birthdays, whatever like that. So we have to understand that there's always going to be there's always going to be this theme where you have a group of people and then a part of that group separates off so they can, come into better alignment with who they are. And this separation whole thing isn't inherently a bad thing, but we have always done that. There's always been groups of people that have like tried to separate, whatever like that, that have always tried to go over here. It's like, all right, I'm gonna go over here and do my own thing. Oh, I'm gonna go over here and do my own thing. But that doesn't mean that separation needs to breed war, even though that's a lot of times what we devolve into as humanity. But it can also just be like, this full moon is going to be teaching us is like, hey, I can talk and associate and even be friends with individuals that don't have all the same views as me. I can be a liberal and have a best friend who's a conservative, or I can be I can be Christian and I can have a best friend that is Muslim, or I can be straight and have a best friend who is gay. Like that's actually possible. But or it's like another example, which this is going to be seem very stupid, right? I can be an Eagles fan and have a best friend who's a Dallas Cowboys fan. And these are teams that are diametrically opposed and they hate each other, but it's just a rivalry. And especially in that context, they don't really affect us unless we play for the team. It doesn't really affect us. That's another whole thing where it's like you have the actual teams that will be fighting each other, that Aries warlike energy, but then you have the people that want to represent those teams, and then they're fighting, but they're not even doing the actual battling. They're not doing the actual battling. They're not actually up there on Capitol Hill trying to, fight for their cause. They're not actually out there on the playing field. They're just in the stands. They're just in the background, and then they get terribly triggered and pissed off at the representatives of the other side who just happen to randomly fall into that because, yes, there are no mistakes, but there is an element of randomness. So it's like, yeah, the fact that I was born in Georgia in the United States, I do believe that I chose all the circumstances of my birth, but I could have easily chosen to have been born somewhere else. Just like how anyone could have chosen to been a fan of something else or whatever like that. It's circumstance, it's life, it's our experiences, it's what's happened to us. It's how we react to our pain and traumas, but also our victories and our joys. It's how we respond to these things. And then it builds up this feedback loop of, oh, okay, that was good. Maybe I should attach myself to that more. Or, oh, that was bad. That didn't make me feel good. Maybe I should detach myself a little bit from that. And everyone has different experiences that have led to that. There are some people that have very valid reasons for having the beliefs that they have, because there was a feedback loop, a reward system that told them that that was good for them. That same thing could be can be a feedback loop that's like, oh, that wasn't good for me, and it could be the same thing, but two different people can have two different experiences. So do those people need to fight each other over it? No. If anything, it's just like, I'm happy for your happiness. If that's what makes you happy, I'm happy for you. But now it's like we want to just like push our dogmas onto other people and be like, you have to address me by this, because if you don't, I'm going to get offended. I'm going to get pissed off if you don't do that. Well, then if that's the case, you might want to take a look at yourself, honey, because maybe there's some insecurities there. There's some insecurities there. It's a lot of insecurities right now. Transfinancial is here. Exactly. Transfinancial. Exactly. Some people will say that identify as transfinancial. Bank account is empty, but identify as billionaires. So the government should fill up their account. Right? Transfinancial, you know. Shout out to the peace sealer for the $1 billion vibe tribe, who's pretty much, he's transfinancial. Exactly. That's the whole thing, right? Transfinancial, you know. A lot of people in the spiritual community are like trans gods. Like they're transitioning into gods, and then they identify as gods, but then they have human experiences, and then they're like, oh, if I'm a god, then how come I'm experiencing this thing that seems like a god would be above? How's above so below? Don't think that the gods don't have drama and problems too. We like to think that the gods and goddesses don't have dramas and problems just like we do. We like to think that the gods and goddesses don't cheat on each other. We like to think that they don't have side hoes and side dudes, side pieces. We like to think all this shit, right? But that's the thing, though. Trans God. I am, because I'm a Scorpio, and I do believe that Scorpios are demigods. But I'm offended by people being offended, right? I'm offended by people being offended about people being offended. Like it gets ridiculous. It gets fucking ridiculous. I'm actually going to show you guys the chart now. I've been meaning to do that. Let's see. Share screen. Share. All right, so here we go. We have the full moon, which apexed around, I think it was like around 5 or so, actually. So yeah, we have the full moon in Aries at 20 degrees that apex around 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Look at this. We have a T-square with Pluto. Now, of course, this is bringing about a challenge. This is the new challenge. We're rising up. We're getting new opponents now. So we had to alter our arsenal, what we're using. We also, as you can see, we have Chiron here in Aries with Mars coming off that opposition. So now it's like even from this standpoint, Mars is now moving forward from this opposition, and this opposition could almost be sort of seen as a sort of crossroads, because it is crossing, of course, this Capricorn Cancer axis where the north and south nodes are respectively, as well as Saturn. So now that Mars is moving forward, we are actually taking we actually have taken the steps, and we're moving past any hurtful traumas, and we are moving more into healing. So this full moon is it is a bit of a wake-up call where, A, you have done the work, even if you feel like you haven't, you have done the work, but now it is time to take it to the next level. What's also cool about this full moon is that even though we get, of course, the challenging T-square, we do have Jupiter at home in Sagittarius, making a trine over to the moon and a sextile over to the sun. So trines and sextiles, trines, I believe, I feel, bring miracles. Sextiles bring opportunities, and they are a positive alignment. But here's the thing about it. While sextiles do bring opportunities, we can allow opportunities to close on us, or we can overthink these opportunities and think that, oh, maybe I'm not worthy of this opportunity, and then we can miss our chance. Or the trine, there can be a beautiful gift or a beautiful miracle that we get in our life, and we may not see it because of our own perceptions. Because, and especially with Jupiter and Sagittarius, which is all about this axis of perception and our belief in ourselves, especially with this over to the moon, the universe is telling us like, yo, you are worthy, you are powerful, and you are worthy of creating so much in your life, and you really can move forward and take this inspiration, and really be inspired by yourself and be inspired by other people. But it's like you have to be willing to open up to the opportunity, and then you have to be willing to see the gifts, the miracles, the grace, all of the things to really be grateful for. You have to be willing to see that. So even though there's a positive alignment here in the midst of this T-square, which it's saying that's like, yeah, we have a challenge to overcome, but it's like, if you do overcome it though, there's like this whole great adventure that's opening up. Jupiter and Sagittarius it's about the adventure, and Jupiter is about to come out of shadow too. We have to consider that too. So it's like, that's why it sort of feels like we haven't been able to break through in the journey, because we felt like we're still trying to kind of clean up and tie up loose ends, whatever like that. Or maybe even loosen some tight ends. Maybe we have some very tight ends that we actually have to loosen up so we can allow that new energy to flow through. So it's like, we are moving on to this next step in the journey, and this next leg of the journey. And yes, we do in many ways kind of have to go back and acknowledge where we have been over the past year. The last time that we had the full moon in Aries, you'll see it soon, Jupiter was in Scorpio. So, that wasn't a very intense, that was a very intense energy. Venus was also in Scorpio then. Venus was actually at 8 degrees of Scorpio. Now Venus is at 6 degrees of Scorpio. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at that. So if we go back, let's go back a year, and then we have to go back pretty much, because it was at pretty much the beginning of Libra season when we got that moon in Aries. And you'll see that we have it's a very similar energies that we're getting. It's a very similar energy that the last full moon in Aries that we got to this full moon. Now, let's see. Take this forward about an hour. You're going to see that the moon finished up in Pisces on this day. And as it shifted over Chiron, and then pretty much going into the next day, bam, you got that full moon in Aries at 2 degrees. Now look, Jupiter is it just shifted to 21 degrees of Scorpio. So it's almost a full 30 degree. So this does represent this whole, yeah, you are on the next leg of the journey. You really are. Venus was here at 8 degrees. And look, we also had the T-square, Saturn at 2 degrees of Capricorn, the moon at 2 degrees of Aries, the sun at 2 degrees of Libra. So we have the challenging T-square, but look, now back then it was at 2 degrees. On this day, it's at 20 degrees. There's a whole 17 to 18 degree jump. So the challenges have gotten more difficult. And here's the other interesting thing about it. We do also have the sextile energy, but this time it's Mars. Mars was in Aquarius at this time at 3 degrees, sextiling the moon and trining over to the sun. So we even have that energy too. We have the whole opportunity of okay, Mars in Aquarius, it's, of course, dealing with, it's, Mars rather be in Leo, I guess you could say, but Mars in Aquarius, it is in many ways sort of like a mob mentality. if the ego of these mobs aren't checked properly, then they can cause a lot of fucking damage, because Aquarius does rule, the masses. But if they're fighting for the right cause and stuff like that, it can create beautiful change. So that sextiling energy was opening up the opportunity for us to react to this sort of mob mentality and these tribal sort of mentalities and the way that the tribe acts. Is offering us the opportunity to act differently into, the moon was past Chiron, so to move past our trauma, to move past our hurt, and then with that trining over to the sun, there's also this miracle. Is like, hey, even though Mercury was here and it was opposing this energy too, and even though we may not necessarily think the same or have different ideas or different thoughts about the same thing, that trining energy is showing us the miracle that, hey, we probably are more alike than we realize. We are probably more alike than we realize. And what was even cooler about this full moon is that there was actually a mystic rectangle, because the south node was on Mars. That's even the whole other thing with that north node in Leo, the south node on Mars during the full moon last year, on September 24th, the south node on Mars, there was even more of a predisposition to act according to the mob mentality, but there was an opportunity for us to overcome it. So look over the past year. Has there been moments where you might have fallen for the mob mentality, or moments where you overcame the mob mentality? You kind of went your own way, but you ended up discovering new people to connect with that really align more with what you believe in. Look at how the past year has gone. Look at the people that you connected with. Look at the people that you have collaborated with. Have you gone along with this mob mentality? And have, with the south node having been on Mars during this last full moon, did you act out in old ways, old outdated ways? Or were you more so focused on this sort of exaltation of your heart space and creativity and love and passion, and that sort of stuff? So, let's see. Why are 4 planets at 20 degrees? That's the other thing that makes this interesting. 20 degrees. Let's look at the numerology. 20 degrees reduces to 2. 2 is ruled by Cancer. It's ruled by the moon. That's where the north node is. It's a very emotional full moon in Aries. Full moons are already very emotional, but the fact then that you get it at 20 degrees takes it to a whole nother fucking level. I want to go ahead and just read real quick from this 20 degrees of Aries, where this full moon is at. I'm just going to read what it says. An empty courtyard. Oh, this will be good. Okay. Nothing is left. Reality is scattered, self-obliterated. The familiar rendered irrelevant. Wow, did you hear that? The familiar rendered irrelevant. Apocalyptic changes, personal and collective, take over, not being only action. You become a projectile of intent, literally identify with what you can do now. Not what you could have done before, but what you can do now. A barren wasteland of an inner world, a thrust outside, stark and surreal. You feel compelled to dare, pushed over the edge, no going back. Destiny as frenzy. And in this wild, volatile mix, creative forces are released that would never come out any other way. Yielding to the role of the purging and cleansing agent of changes, you are unable to wriggle out of anything ever again. That is super fucking intense. That is crazy intense. Literally talking about the familiar rendered irrelevant. You've been making the same move, and it's not working anymore because your opponent has adapted. They figured it out. If a certain animal kept doing the same thing and they didn't adapt, they're going to die out and become extinct. So that's saying that, there is a version of you that is extinct right now. That is irrelevant. It's in the past. It's done. And yes, all of these time layers exist on top of each other and shit, but there is an aspect of you that is extinct, doesn't do it anymore. It doesn't progress you anymore. So there's this sort of stark reality. It's like, oh shit, I do have to do something different. I have to do something new. I have to activate something new. I have to initiate something new. Fortnite had a live event today. Lots of rockets came down and exploded the map. The servers went down. Fortnite made all of the social media is a black hole. Nobody can log in. Internet is going wild. That's perfect for this too. That's perfect for this too. It really is. I'm going to draw one tarot card and one oracle card for the collective, and then I'm going to get out of this video. But this is an upgrade to our character. This is an upgrade to our arsenal. We're getting a new moveset. We can even be evolving to a whole new Pokemon. Like we can really be evolving now. Or we can be going to a whole new region too. We could have just won the Pokemon League, and now it's like, all right, now it's time to go to the next region. And it's like, yeah, we could take our whole team with us, but it's time to get some new Pokemon. It's time to develop some new, relationships. It's time to work on some new things. It's time to, figure some more things out. It's time to develop our character a little bit more. Super synchronicity. That the whole Fortnite thing going down, that is a major synchronicity. That really is. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I'm not really super into Fortnite or whatever like that. I used to play like Call of Duty a lot back in the day, but I had a card just fall out. So interesting enough, we have the Page of Cups. The Page of Cups is a student of the emotions. So it's like we are in many ways, we have to become student of our emotions again, and our reactions and our responses. The Page of Cups is very much so romantic, very much so romantic in the dreams that he or she goes for, that they strive for, their goals. Page of Cups is very much so romantic. Did you play WoW? I did not play World of Warcraft. No, I didn't really get too much into MMOs and stuff like that. I guess really the only RPG game I played was like Pokemon and stuff. But I know it's not really like an MMO. I played Skyrim, but I didn't really play WoW. I tried to get into League of Legends and I couldn't really get into it. And yeah, I know Fortnite's like a huge thing and esports are really big, but I haven't really gotten into it. I thought about playing like Pokemon competitively, but honestly, I think it would just take away from the fun of it, at least for me. So maybe just casually playing more. I want to play more competitively online, but as far as like going to tournaments, trying to stress out over trying to create like the perfect team and all that, I don't necessarily want to do that. And I want to have fun and stuff like that, and I want to kind of approach it from a new angle, because I haven't really done it much as far as like building a team and going online and battling people. But I don't necessarily really care about doing all that other stuff. That's just not for me. I have other things that I'm focused on. So let's see what we have with along with the Page of Cups. I'm done. No way. Step away from the crowd. Are you kidding me? No way. The card that I drew. It's like, it was crazy. That's so funny. It's so funny. Yeah, the video's still going. I'm almost done. I just thought it was funny. I know. Yo, I'm done. Cheers. Actually, honestly, I feel like this is what we are actually. This is sort of the energy that we're stepping away from. The step away from the crowd and the Page of Cups very much so accurately describes the last full moon in Aries, that whole energy that now that we're stepping into this new full moon in Aries, this is the energy that in many ways we are upgrading from and sort of like we're transitioning from, stepping away from the crowd. And then the Page of Cups, if you can get a whole crowd of students of their emotions that haven't really mastered their emotions, and you can get them to do a certain thing, they can be very destructive. They can be very powerful, but they can be very destructive. Because of this, because I really feel within my intuition that this is the full moon, that the last full moon in Aries that we had, this is the energy that we're coming from. I really feel called to draw 2 more cards. I just really think that's hilarious that I drew that. Sorry, guys. I just had to step away and grab that Corona because I just thought that that was just hilarious. It was so perfect the way that it came out like that. It really was. So, I'm going to draw another card. I'm gonna flip these at the same time. I'm not gonna shuffle this deck. I'm just gonna pull a card. So we're all going to come into this at the same time. I'm not gonna look at the cards. I'm gonna show them up to you guys. Bam! This is what we got. Oh wow! Look at this. What? Oh, did y'all see that, guys? Say thank you in the 10 of Cups. Say thank you in the 10 of Cups. How beautiful is that? Oh my goodness. So you see how he just came home from a hard day at work? He even brought flowers, and she recognized you've been doing such great work. Thank you so much for all that you do. And then you got the 10 of Cups, that happy, beautiful fucking life that you can have by having gratitude every day. And be like, you know what? Damn, I've been putting in the work. Yeah, it's like, who knows? Maybe he just got a promotion. You know, that guy in the say thank you card. Thank you for nothing. Like, no, I'm just saying, like, maybe he got a promotion, you know? Maybe he got a promotion. He was so, like, maybe he's been trying to figure out, like, you know, I gotta do something different at work. He got a promotion. He came home with the thing of flowers. Just like, oh my gosh, yes, let's celebrate that 10 of Cups energy. The kids are playing there. This is a beautiful energy, guys. It really is. It can be difficult. There can be some challenges here, but this energy that we're stepping into, where it's like creating that beautiful life for ourselves, creating more of that joy and that passion and stuff. And not every day is going, maybe he lost his job. Maybe he did lose his job. Maybe he lost his job because he realized his value and his boss was a dick, you know, or a bitch. And now he could, yeah, it could be that too. And then he comes into more happiness. Or maybe, yeah, it's like, you know what? He quit his job. He's like, you know, I'm going to go for my dreams. I'm going to start that business and do that thing, you know, start that nonprofit or whatever like that. It could be that too, you know. And then here's the cool thing about it. She's hugging him too. So in the case that, say, he did quit his job, and he's like, yeah, maybe now he's in between work, but she's still hugging him out of support. It's a support thing. It's like, you know what? I support you. I believe in you. I'm happy for your happiness. Like, that's a huge thing too. Yeah. So it's a cool thing. There could be challenges and stuff, obviously, obstacles. But what's happening here is that, like, we are being called to evolve our character and to upgrade our arsenal. This could, like, you know, maybe he's going to go back to school. Who knows? Maybe he'll go back to school. You know, some of you may go back to school over the next year and go back to school. Maybe you actually physically go back to school, or maybe you pick up a hobby that you've always wanted to do and you learn something new, or you just continue to work on your craft, or you expand upon your craft by taking certain classes and stuff like that. You know, how that is certainly very much so possible over the course of the next year. You're too positive. I'm trying to be angry and make excuses. Smells Inc. Stop making excuses, bro. You were helping me over these past couple weeks to not make excuses. I almost made an excuse to not make this video, but I'm very glad I did. That's a small example. It's a small example. And yes, Aries energy can have a bit of that anger, but channel that anger into your books and into your writing skills. Channel that into your books, into your writing. This is very positive energy. These are just the cards that drew, man. So you can't really get mad at me for this, all right? It's beautiful energy. It's rainbows and sunshine, right? But this is not necessarily about projecting, you know, that whole ideology onto other people. It will be different if this was a card that showed like a bunch of people, but it's just them two. It's that relationship. It's that one-on-one relationship, you know. So it's like about, you know, that one person that does see that you're trying. That you're not trying. Excuse me. I gotta get that word out of my dictionary. I don't have vocabulary. It's about that one person that does acknowledge you. That's more important. It's more important that one person who really cares about you acknowledges how you want to define or label yourself than if 50 people online acknowledge it. If you're so upset and offended that somebody won't acknowledge you for who you are, or like 50 people won't acknowledge you for who you are, but then you have one person who's been standing there like the whole time, like, I acknowledge you, I acknowledge you, I acknowledge you, I care about you, I love you, I accept you. That one person, that care and that energy that you get from that one person far outweighs and shatters that energy of those 50 people that don't really see eye to eye with you. It outweighs it so much. It takes a lot of times, have you noticed, it takes like one person to really inspire you. Yes, a group of people can inspire a person, but a lot of times it's one person that does. It's one person, it's one thing, it's one event. It could be a chain of people, it could be a chain of events, but it's usually one person. It's that one person that does it, that motivates you, inspires you, that supports you, that can make the fucking difference. It can really make the fucking difference. 2 more cards about our suggested next step. Okay, I will do that. I will do that. 2 more cards about our suggested next step. I will do that. We get 2 more cards about the suggested next step for this full moon in Aries and how that's going to affect the next year. 2 more cards. Let me take the top card off the deck. Queen of Wands and talk to God. Queen of Wands and talk to God. I don't really want to talk too much on that because I feel like, you know, everyone's conversations with God is their own and their own personal journey, what they need to come into. But the Queen of Wands, if you think about it, the Wands, the fire energy is sort of it is a more masculine energy, the fire energy, but then you have the Queen here, which is more receptive. So it's about how can we receive that inspiration from God? You know, where it's more subtle. It's not as obvious. It's not necessarily a physical synchronicity that we see. It's not just looking at the clock and we see 11:11. We're like, all right, you know what? I am going to start that business. It's a feeling from the inside, or it's a dream that we have. Then we're like, okay, God's talking to me. Let me talk to God. Let me see what's up. Let me see what's up. Anyways, I'm gonna just about do it right there. I went live much longer than I thought I did, but a lot of times that happens in these videos. But I hope that you all enjoyed this. I hope that you guys got some type of value out of this, and I do appreciate all of your continued support. It really means the world to me. It really, really does. And I'm excited to move forward with you all and continue this journey and rise in love and, you know, overcome the challenges. And now we're upgrading. So like, comment down below, you know, what what Pokemon are you evolving into now? Like you're evolving, you know, it's the music, dun 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 dun. Yeah, like you're like immersed in light. You're immersed in this bright light and this bright energy, and now you're about to be revealed to the world. Who are you now? Like what? I mean, you can comment a Pokemon, you can comment really, whatever you're trying to evolve into. But comment down below what you feel like you are evolving into right now. And you don't have to really talk too much about it, but just comment down below and see, see what you get. See just what comes to you and stuff. So, anyways, as I said, that is going to be it for this video. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Hope that you all got some great value out of this. And I will be seeing you all definitely in the next video. And I love you all so much. Y'all take care. Stay blessed. And as always, my beautiful brothers and sisters, always remember to keep moving forward, to stay focused, and Yahoo! Smile often. Charizard, but more tame. Decidueye, good choice. Leo Gem, are you going to be Charizard? Are you going to be Mega Charizard X or Mega Charizard Y? Think about that. I'll see y'all later, guys. Peace.